For decades, the Big Island of Hawaii has been home to one of the most studied natural wonders on Earth, Kilauea volcano. To the geologists who live and work on its slopes, this mountain is like an old friend. They know its habits, they can read its breathing, the rhythmic inflation and deflation of the summit, like a doctor reading a pulse. It was, for the most part, a laboratory of predictability. But in mid-January of 2026, that familiarity vanished. The rhythm broke. In a span of just 72 hours, something fundamental shifted beneath the surface. The Kilauea fault system, a massive, jagged structural boundary that connects the volcano's summit to its mobile south flank, began to tear apart. And it happened at a rate never before witnessed in the modern historical record. Now, if you were imagining a Hollywood disaster movie with lava fountains lighting up the night sky, erase that image. This is not a standard eruption story. There is no fire on the mountain today. Instead, we are witnessing a silent, invisible, and potentially much more dangerous drama unfolding deep underground. GPS stations are moving not by millimeters, but by centimeters every single day. Seismometers are recording the terrifying sound of deep bedrock snapping in half. Satellites passing overhead have confirmed that the ground itself is splitting open. The data points to a massive destabilization of Kilauea's south flank. It is a scenario that, if it escalates to total failure, carries the theoretical risk of a colossal collapse and a subsequent tsunami. To understand what is happening, we have to look at the invisible signals. Section 1. The whisper in the data. The first warning wasn't a roar. It was a whisper in the digital streams of the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. The observatory, or HVO, relies on a sophisticated network of high-precision GPS stations. Think of these as digital sentinels standing watch on the volcano's slopes 24 hours a day. 3 specific stations, named KNW, KAP, and PINA, became the harbingers of this crisis. Under normal conditions, Kilauea is always moving. The south flank slides toward the ocean at a pace geologists call glacial, about 10 centimeters per year. That is the standard background noise of tectonics in Hawaii. But starting around January 16, 2026, that slow drift turned into a sprint. The displacement curves on the monitors spiked vertically. In a mere 72-hour window, the KNW station near the summit lurched 2.4 centimeters to the west-southwest. Further down the mountain, the KAP and PINA stations were pulled violently to the south and east, moving 1.9 and 2.1 centimeters respectively. Let's put that in perspective. The ground compressed a quarter of a year's worth of movement in just 3 days. When scientists plotted these vectors on a map, the pattern was alarming. The directions of movement fanned outward, radiating away from the Kilauea fault zone. It looked as if the land was being forcibly tugged toward the ocean by a giant unseen hand. This wasn't passive drift of gravity anymore. This was active, high-velocity displacement, suggesting a massive accumulation of stress that the rock could no longer contain. Section 2. The sound of snapping rock. By January 18th, the silence underground was broken. At 2:12 a.m. Coordinated Universal Time, the seismic monitors lit up red. In a condensed 30-minute window, 48 distinct earthquakes struck directly beneath the Kilauea fault system. Now, for a seismic analyst, the sheer number of quakes is less important than their signature. Usually, the background tremors on Kilauea are shallow and what scientists call mushy. They represent rock grinding past rock or fluids moving through loose pathways. But these new signals, they were different. They were clustered deep, between 1.5 and 5 kilometers down, and the waveforms on the screens were crisp and abrupt. This specific signature indicates something called brittle failure. It means the rock isn't just sliding, it is snapping. The crust was being pulled apart with enough force to fracture solid basalt miles beneath our feet. The tight clustering of these 48 quakes suggested a focused release of energy. It looked like a wedge of magma was forcing its way into the fault zone, prying the land apart from the inside out. Section 3. The view from space. While ground sensors measured the movement point by point, space-based radar gave us the terrifying big picture. A Sentinel-1 satellite passed over the island on January 17th. It delivered a processed image known as an interferogram. This technology maps ground deformation using colored bands, or fringes, almost like a topographic map made of rainbows. The resulting image was a shock to the remote sensing team. Instead of the gentle gradients usually seen over months of observation, the map showed 8 distinct fringes stacked rapidly from the summit down to the Kilauea faults. In the language of radar, this translated to 8 centimeters of ground deformation in just days. Simultaneously, the Uwekahuna tiltmeter, an instrument on the caldera rim sensitive enough to measure the tilt of a dime from kilometers away, recorded a steady inflation. This confirmed that magma was not just moving, it was pooling. A hidden reservoir of molten rock appeared to be accumulating directly beneath the faults, warping the surface and driving the south flank outward like a hydraulic jack. The delivery should be documentary style, authoritative, calm, but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. Section 4. The reality on the ground. The abstraction of data quickly became a physical reality. When helicopter crews lifted off to survey the Kilauea fault system, they found that the stress was no longer contained underground. The landscape, previously marked by old, weathered scarps and subtle grooves, was now scored with fresh, jagged wounds. Field teams identified a massive new fissure stretching nearly 300 meters in length. At its widest point, the earth had gaped open more than 4 meters. That is wide enough to swallow a large pickup truck whole. These were not hairline fractures. They were deep ruptures, exposing ancient lava layers that had been split clean through. Surveyors documented parallel fissure systems stepping across the terrain in what geologists call N-echelon patterns. The rock faces were fresh, crumbly, and sharp, testimony to the immediacy of the violence. The tearaway zone, as geologists call the Kilauea, was living up to its name. It was physically detaching the mobile southern slope from the stable central edifice of the volcano. Section 5. The mechanics of collapse. To understand why this is so dangerous, we have to understand the anatomy of Kilauea. The volcano isn't a solid mountain rooted to the core of the earth. It is a pile of rocks resting on a slippery seafloor. The south flank is mobile. Gravity naturally wants to pull it into the ocean. The Kilauea fault system acts as the hinge, the boundary between the stable part of the island and this unstable, sliding block. The current crisis is a result of 2 massive forces conspiring together: magmatic intrusion and gravitational instability. First, magma pressure. Molten rock is injecting itself into the rift zones, pushing the south flank outward. Second, gravity. The massive weight of the flank is pulling it seaward. When these forces exceed the friction holding the island together, the faults slip. The fear, the ultimate geological nightmare, is that if the slip becomes too rapid, it could trigger a Hilina Slump event. This is a sudden, catastrophic landslide of the entire south flank. Section 6. The Tsunami Scenario. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory does not deal in fear-mongering, but their job is to model worst-case scenarios to protect the public. And the theoretical danger of a rapid Kilauea failure is the generation of a tsunami. Finite element models run by geophysicists have simulated what would happen if a 120 cubic kilometer block of the south flank suddenly detached. The parameters of the model are terrifying. The slide itself would be incredibly fast. The block could accelerate into the ocean in less than 90 seconds, lubricated by pressurized fluids deep underground. The local impact would be instantaneous. The displacement of water would create a wall up to 15 meters high, slamming into the southern coast of Hawaii Island within minutes. Natural barriers would be overtopped. Low-lying communities would be inundated with almost zero warning time. But the energy wouldn't stop at Hawaii. The simulation tracks the wave radiating across the Pacific Basin. Japan would see the wave arrive in approximately 9 hours. The U.S. West Coast would face impact between 5 and 9 hours after the collapse. While the wave height would decrease over that distance, models suggest surges of 0.5 meter to 2 meters in distant harbors. That is enough to smash boats, damage infrastructure, and threaten lives thousands of miles away. These numbers are not a prediction of what will happen tomorrow, but they are a definition of the hazard that exists if the fault system fails completely. Conclusion. Vigilance.
The calibration is
As of
off by
4
3
a.m. on
degrees.
January
Adjust
18,
here.
2026, the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory shifted into full watch status. The scientific response has been robust. Teams have deployed additional seismic nodes, GPS units, and tilt meters to densify the network. They are ensuring that not even a micromillimeter of movement goes unnoticed. Automated alert thresholds have been set. If GPS movement exceeds 5 centimeters in a day, or if an earthquake exceeding magnitude 6.0 strikes the fault zone, civil defense protocols will trigger immediate warnings. The splitting ground of the Kilauea fault system serves as a stark reminder of the dynamic power of our planet. For now, the island waits. The cracks are widening, the magma is pushing, and scientists are racing to interpret the signals before the next threshold is crossed. Kilauea is rewriting its own geography in real time, and humanity can only watch, measure, and prepare.